A story time about the worst date in my entire life. And ladies, this is why you should really know a guy before meeting up with him. By the way, we're calling him Slim Jim. So I met Slim Jim over Instagram. He was cute and he lived in my area. He DM'd me about a date. So a couple weeks later, we went out to dinner. During our date, he seemed pretty cool, but he kept looking down at his phone. I didn't want to get upset because he wasn't my boyfriend. When we ordered, the guy literally gets $200 worth of food. And me, on the other hand, I got a $20 solid. But all throughout the date, he kept looking around and I was so confused. And he constantly said that he needed to go to the bathroom. He told me that he took medicine that made him go to the bathroom a lot. The last time he went to the bathroom, he was going for like 30 minutes. And at that point, I was irritated and ready to go until a random girl walks up to me asking if I knew Slim Jim was here. I told her we were on a date and she basically told me that she was his girlfriend and baby mama. If you want to know what happened after that, let me know down below in the comments. This is part 2 of the worst date in my life. And the reason why, ladies, you need to really know a guy before meeting up with him. So, like I said before, he left me at a table for like 30 minutes. And I got upset because I thought he was trying to ditch me to pay the bill. Well, then a couple minutes later, a girl comes up to me asking if I was on a date with Slim Jim. I told her yes, and she basically explained that she was his girlfriend and baby mom. Well, at this point, she was his ex-girlfriend. She starts telling me the craziest things about him, that he robs people and that he will soon be doing time for being a part of a murder investigation, and that I should stay away from him because he had HIV and that he gave it to her. I had asked her, how did you find him? And she tells me that he takes all his new girls here. Then she leaves out the restaurant. 5 minutes later, Slim Jim comes back and tells me he thinks he dropped his wallet. In my head, I'm assuming that he's trying to make me pay for the $200 dinner. So I tell him that I have to go to the bathroom. I'm running out of time. This is part 3 of the worst date in my entire life, and the reason why you ladies need to really know a guy before meeting up with him. So his baby mom comes in and tells me the craziest things about him and then dips out. Slim Jim comes back out of the bathroom claiming he lost his wallet, so I had told him that I needed to go to the bathroom. When I get into the bathroom, I'm looking for an escape plan to leave out. When I get out of the bathroom, I walk the opposite way of her table and almost make it out of the restaurant. Next thing you know, I'm getting tapped on the shoulder and I turn around and it's him. I'm literally so confused because he was just sitting down the whole time. He asked me where the hell was I going, and I told him I was looking for the bathroom. He starts to act very weird. He walks me over to the bathroom and literally waits outside of the bathroom door until I get out. And guys, I didn't know what else to do. I needed an escape plan, and I saw a window in the bathroom and literally climbed out of the window to get away from this man. Then 2 weeks later, come to find out, he gets arrested and he's given 23 years in prison. This story time is why I stopped being friends with a girl because her dad was a pervert. And we're calling her Kim. So me and Kim became friends at school. Over time, we realized we lived close together. So she started coming over to my house and I started going over to hers. She had 5 brothers and she was the only girl. Whenever I'd come over to her house, I'd say hello to everyone, but her dad was always excited to see me. He'd immediately run and give me a hug. Over the past couple months, he'd give me a hug and a kiss on the cheek. He said that I was his new little girl. I felt uncomfortable with it, but I went and told my friend Kim, and she said, he's just glad you're here, and you're like family now. I was like, okay, I guess, and I would just ignore it. Thanksgiving come up, and I went over to her house for a plate. Her dad opened up the door and gave me a hug and a kiss as usual. I walked in the house, and he said, you need to eat to keep that booty plump. I laughed in nervousness, and he slapped and squeezed my butt. There's more that happened after this. Let me know if you guys want a part 2. This is part 2 of why I stopped being friends with the girl because her dad was a pervert. So remember how I told y'all I came over for Thanksgiving? Her dad slapped and squeezed my butt. I was weirded out, but I laughed to hide how nervous and anxious I was. After I get a plate of food and I sit down with Kim, I told her dad slapped my butt. And she was like, yeah, okay, as if she didn't believe me. So again, I ignored the situation. As the day goes on, everyone is playing board games, laughing, and eating desserts. I had cheesecake and I'm lactose intolerant. And you know how that went. I left the family for a few minutes and I go to the bathroom. When I was all finished, I opened up the door and there was Kim's dad just sitting there smiling at me. I was like, oops, my bad. You were probably waiting for a while. Here you go. And I tried to move out of the way. But then he says, I don't need to go to the bathroom. He pushes me back in by the hips and locks the door. It gets really bad after this. Y'all let me know if I should make a part 3. This is part 3 of why I stopped being friends with the girl because her dad was a pervert. So after her dad pushes me back into the bathroom and locks the door, he's sitting there smiling at me, and I asked him very nervously if I did something wrong. He was like, yes, you haven't been spending time with daddy, and he likes to jiggle my breasts in a weird way. At this point, I was backing up because he starts acting weird. Then he starts unzipping his pants and gets closer to me. And guys, their bathroom wasn't that big. I immediately took the Windex that was on top of their toilet and sprayed it into his eyes and quickly ran out of the bathroom. After this, her dad starts yelling. While I'm coming downstairs, everyone asks what's going on. I told the whole family what Kim dad has done, and one of their little brothers yells at me, calling me a whore. I then went to Kim saying, you gotta believe me, that's what happened. She's like, my dad would never do anything like that. Her mom walks up to me and tells me that I should leave. I start crying, and then her mom yells at me and tells me to go home. So I left and went home crying. After that, I never went back over to her house. Around this time in October, a couple years ago when I was in 7th grade, I went to a friend's house for a slumber party, and we're calling her Charlotte. It was Charlotte's birthday party, and she had a big sleepover with 10 other girls. I knew 6 of them because they were friends and they lived in our neighborhood. The other 4 were her cousins and a friend from school. She had ice cream and cake, we danced, prank called, the regular preteen sleepover. Later that night, we watched a scary movie, and after it was over, one of Charlotte's friends from school said, we should play the Ouija board. By the way, we're calling her Sam. I wasn't really into it because my mom always told me to stay away from those things. Charlotte wanted to play too, and she said, how are we going to play without the board? Sam said, we can make one. All we need is cardboard. Somehow they found cardboard in the kitchen, and Sam made the board and a triangle piece with a hole in it. I was like, that's not going to work. When Sam and Charlotte played, the piece moved across the board. When the piece moved, everyone screamed, and Charlotte's dad came in the room asking what the problem was. Charlotte immediately scooted the board under the bed and said, I thought I saw a bug, but it was just a hairball. And her dad seemed a little irritated, but he just walked out the room. When he left, Sam pulled the board back from under the bed, saying that the game needed to be finished, but Charlotte said she still wanted to ask questions. So everyone each got to ask a question, and the board answered it. They even asked questions of today, and at the time, our president was Obama, and it knew who the president was. When it was Sam's turn, she asked jokingly, since the board knew everything, she asked when we were going to die, and it said, tonight. And from there on, everyone stopped playing. Charlotte got scared and didn't even want to touch the board anymore. Sam constantly said that we all have to say goodbye, but everyone wanted to stay away, and usually when you don't say goodbye, the spirits that you talk through the board continue to roam around your home.
Story time about how I got caught skipping school almost every day of my senior year. So our school had just started this new thing where you fill out all your contact information online. And my dad was like, okay, yeah, just fill yours out. And it pretty much was who can pick you up, who can make early dismissals for you, who they can call if you're in trouble. Well, I decided to be a sneaky little bastard and put my boyfriend in for every single one of those contacts. I would start school around 7:30 a.m. and I would go to the nurse's office at like 9 a.m. and she would call and my boyfriend would act like my dad and be like, okay, yeah, just let her drive home. Well, my guidance counselor noticed after about 3 months of me never being at school. So she called the number hoping to speak to my dad, but instead she got my boyfriend. And he just thought it was a random person, so he didn't act like my dad because neither of us knew. Like for part 2.
Okay, part 2. Okay, so pretty much what happened after that is she called and she found out that it wasn't my dad. And then she went digging and she called my sister to the office and she was like, what's your dad's phone number? And my sister was like, why? Don't you guys have it already? And I also put the same numbers for my sisters so that way in case this day came, then, it wouldn't look suspicious. Well, I don't know what she threatened my sister with, but she scared the hell out of her, so she gave her my dad's number. And so my sister told me whenever she got home, so I went to school the next day. And it was like a surprise party whenever I walked in the office. The dean was there, the principal was there, and my guidance counselor.
My first impression is they have some nerve charging $15 for this jar.
So what did I do?
Aesthetic-wise, it's super appealing.
I left before they called him.
How pretty is this? I'm back
Extremely
for part 2 where I
toxic
test
best
out the
friend
wax.
story time. So when I was in 8th grade, there was this boy. And this boy would go around telling almost every girl that he liked her. And I was one of those girls. and he would do stuff with all of us. And there were like 11 of us. So we all hated each other. Especially this one girl, and we're gonna call her Abby. And every time we saw each other, we would be super mean to each other. Well, a year passed, we stopped talking to this kid, and I bumped into her at homecoming and basically apologized. So after that, we became best friends. And everything was good until every time I told her about a guy, she would start talking to them. Like this one boy that I was Snapchatting and talking to, she accidentally sent nudes to him and said, "Oh, sorry, I meant to send them to my boyfriend." So then she called one of my other best friends and said, "No, it actually wasn't an accident." And of course he told me because he was my best friend. So I was like, whatever, and stopped talking to the boy. And she did it again, like for part 2.
Extremely toxic best friend part 2. So pretty much her excuse for that was, oh, well, he said that he was gonna leak my nudes if I didn't send him them again. Which was a lie because literally half the school already had her nudes. So then I started talking to this other boy. And he lived like right down the street from her. So she was like, if you want to go to his house, you can. And I was like, are you sure? And she said, yeah, just go tell my mom. And I was like, oh, okay. So I went and told her mom where I was going and went over his house. So I walked back to her house and she literally locked me out. Like her mom had to come open the door for me to let me in. And she was like, oh, it's a good thing you came back when you did. Because I was going to drive you home now and tell your dad everything that you did. And she goes, I don't think you guys should be together because you're unexperienced. And she would always tell me how he flirts with her all the time. So after our friendship ended, she goes, I just felt like it was always a competition between me and you.
Story time about my toxic ex-boyfriend that I met in therapy. Little background information. I was a part of this therapy group where you would go every week and talk about your feelings. Well, I saw this really cute kid, so I wrote down my Snapchat and gave it to him. He added me back, and then we started dating like a week later. And for the first 2 or 3 months, everything was going smooth. And then he became really toxic and controlling. Like, he would always go through my phone. And any guy that I had a streak with, he would accuse me of cheating on him with them. And it got to the point where he was literally so clingy. Like, every second of every day he wanted to FaceTime, he had to be talking to me. I had to have my location on. And I would explain to him that I needed my space, but he literally just did not get the hint. So by this point, we were literally on and off all the time. And anytime that I broke up with him, I would block him because I didn't want to think about him. But he started calling my parents and complaining about me. So they blocked him. And then he tried being friends with my brother to get to me.